Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Camille. I'm going to interview you for the World Trade Center Oral History Project. First, I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to do this interview with me.
Sure.
The purpose of this interview is to allow you to give your personal perspective and story of the World Trade Center disaster and your involvement with the rescue and recovery efforts that followed. By sharing your story, you will help us capture this historic event in a unique and personal way. We believe the oral histories we gather will be invaluable to educators, researchers, and the public. As we revisit these memories, please be as detailed as possible when describing your experiences. You may use the names of people you worked with, street names, share sensory information like smells, tastes, noises, etc. I'd like you to give a clear sense of the environment around you. We're trying to get the larger picture that only a human voice can give. So we will start by talking about your early life, followed by your memories of 9/11 and the aftermath, and then discuss your life now. I know that some memories may be difficult to talk about, so I really want to thank you for being willing to share your story.
Sure.
Can we have a starting time, please?
Yes, 10:22.
Thank you. So to begin, can you please state and spell your first name?
My name is Glenn, Glenn.
Thank you. Okay, so Glenn, being that we really just met today, I would love to learn a little bit about your background. So if you want to tell me about your early life, your family, where you grew up, and maybe what led you to be a police officer.
Born in Brooklyn, oldest of two brothers. Parents were divorced when I was very young, when I was 2. Raised by my mother, saw my father every weekend. He came out every weekend, no matter what. He was like the postman, the snow, the sleet, the rain, whatever came, he always came out and do a thing. So they're always both in my life. As far as me choosing, lived on Long Island, went to school in Long Island, everything else, went to college. Ever since when I was a kid, every boy wants to be a cop, a fireman, or an astronaut at that time. I was born in '63, so that was the course of, I guess, what your career choices want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I never outgrew the cop thing. So went to school for criminal justice, an associate's, got a bachelor's in it also, and took a series of tests, which eventually got me a job in 1986 in the New York City Police Department. Prior to that, I was married, had two boys, and around the same time as 9/11, they was 6 years old or 4 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, I enjoyed being a police officer, loved the job, loved working with the people, enjoyed everything about it.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So you said your parents got divorced when you were very young.
Yes.
But you maintained a good relationship with your dad.
Yeah, it was tough. You only do what you could do until every weekend. You sort of
Yeah.
until the weekend. But it was, obviously they were different people. Raised by mom and everything else. We saw my dad on the weekends,
Yeah.
and it was what it was.
Yeah.
Everyone was divorced at the time. And if you're divorced, it's just the way it was. You had a single mom, and there wasn't any of the parental alienation because my dad lived in Brooklyn and Queens at the time, and
Okay.
so it wasn't like we were going back and forth to houses.
Okay.
I was always in one house.
Okay.
I was the oldest, so I guess, as my mother would say, well, you're the man of the house. You had to grow up a little fast. So I did grow up a little faster than most kids my age. Yeah.
I can imagine. That's difficult.
Yeah, it is. I always said, God deals you a hand, you play it.
Yeah.
Because whenever whenever you're playing cards, you're gonna get a number of hands. So if that one you got to fold, you pick up another one, you do it again.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
just keep moving forward, no matter what.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah. So you decided to go to school for criminal justice.
Yes.
What kind of led you to that decision?
I was under the impression that being a police officer, you have to. A lot of times to be promoted in the police department, you need an education. I liked police work. Unbeknownst to me, really, as you got higher and higher into the education within quote unquote criminal justice, it became a little more boring. They were into correctional philosophy and all rehabs and all these other theories that you knew didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I wanted to continue education to begin with. So
yes.
I did. I continued. I got while I was taking tests and everything else, I would just continue my education. If I didn't get called for this test, okay, I have my associates now. I didn't get called for this test. It's going to be another 6 to 8 months. Might as well go start my bachelor's. So eventually I ended up, going to Farmingdale for my associates, going to Post for my bachelor's. And eventually I just got called for the police test for New York City.
That's great. That's great. What did you like most about being a police officer?
I liked the something different every day.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I did enjoy helping people. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed just I was never one for an office job. I
Mm-hmm.
like being out there. I didn't like writing too many tickets. That wasn't my thing. But most of us don't.
We
But
appreciate that.
that's good. But just being out there every day, I thought it was a good way to make it was a rewarding occupation.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it, and helping people was good. I always there was always later on as I grew older, there was I was a part of when I became the Suffolk County Police Department. I was one of the two people who started a charity called Six Precinct Cops Who Care, and we used a mantra from a 16th century philosopher named John Banyan,
Mm-hmm.
and his name was Banyan. I believe it was Banyan or Bunyan, but his term was, "You haven't lived today until you do something for someone who you know can never repay you."
Mm.
So I guess if you think about if you're going into police work,
Yeah.
I guess I kind of was, that mantra was within me before I even knew what it was.
Yes.
So there's so many things that you do in police work, you don't even realize it, that when
Right.
that you do in police work on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because when you retired, I retired for 35 and a half years. The first few weeks, you almost feel like you have no purpose
Mm.
because you don't realize, even like giving somebody directions and changing a tire or just helping an elderly person um, off the floor if they fell out of bed or fell off the toilet. You're always helping people. You're always doing something.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not doing, God's work. You're not being recognized for it. That's just the nature of your job.
Yeah.
And when you're not doing anything anymore, just like that, it's very challenging.
I bet.
Very challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
but I didn't realize how much I missed that.
Yeah.
Until you stop doing it on a
Yeah.
daily basis. Like little stupid things like, you are helping. Can you tell me how to get, to this building? I go, you're right there. It's right behind you. It's little stuff like that. But you're always helping people. Like I said, stupid little things. But at the end of the day, you don't even realize how rewarding it is. But until you stop doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
So you were on the Suffolk Police Force.
I was in the New York City Police Department from 1986 until April of 2002.
Okay.
All in the same time was taking the Suffolk County Police test. I took that test 4 times in 20 years, an entire police career. I took that test.
Wow.
Never got less than a 90, and I got called and started with them in April of 2002.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What was your motivation for taking that test?
Well, being a city police officer, the hours, I think their tours were 8 hours and 35 minutes. So couple that with the travel, every day going back and forth to the city, and the construction with the travel, you pretty much have the house 14 hours a day.
Yeah,
So you don't get any rest and everything else. So you couldn't coach your kids' teams. You barely saw your kids' games. You were running out there and you're running there half. Your t-shirt was soaking wet from being working all day under the vest, and you were finally getting there to see him at least on at bat. You know what I mean? You're dealing with traffic, so you missed that. You had a lot less family time.
Yeah.
And I knew when I came out here, like, just for argument's sake, the National Police Suffolk Police work 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
City Police work 8 hours and 35 minutes a day, plus the hour travel each way you're going. If you're not on a train, it's going to be even longer. I drove. But when I came out here, between the travel and the tour itself, I ended up picking up, time-wise, an extra 23 days a year that I was home.
Wow.
Yes, so that's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, and at the time, my kids, I was able to coach.
That's great.
I was able to just do a lot of things. You're just home while I would have to leave for work to work for 4 to 12. I'd leave like 1:30.
Mm-hmm. Over
here for 3 to 11, I'd leave like 2:30.
Yeah,
it's a lot of time.
Yeah,
a lot of time. So I enjoyed it. And coming out here was good. It was a different thing. The demographic was different. People, not that people appreciated you more out here.
Mm.
And the thing is too is you work. If there's a crime spree in a place around here, you live near here.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say the city cops are apathetic, but out here you really put a little more effort into it because it could very easily affect you and your family and your friends. So, but I enjoyed it out here. It's the way this job's a good job.
Wonderful.
Very good job.
When did you retire?
I retired in July of 21. That was after 13 months of having being diagnosed with 9/11 cancer, 9/11 cancer.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have stayed. I was with the peer support team. I was a union delegate. I was always very active.
Okay.
Always active. In fact, this is the longest I've ever sat still.
It's been 7 minutes.
I know, right?
Um, okay, so you really worked on Long Island for a long time. That's
Yeah,
great. That's
yeah.
great.
It's always been in my blood.
Yeah,
I
it
enjoyed it.
sounds like it gave you some work-life balance.
It did. It did.
That's great.
Yeah.
You said you have children.
I do.
Tell me about your kids.
I have 3 boys. My oldest son, Stephen, he'll be 29 on the 1st of August.
Mhm.
He is a phenomenal volleyball player. He was all county and everything else in high school, Smithtown East High School. He eventually went to Hunter College. He was recruited to go to Hunter College in New York, in New York City.
Mhm.
He helped build a program there. They went to the CUNY finals, the City University finals, 4 times. They
Wow.
lost 3. They won 3. They lost, and like one year he lost to an All-American. He made an All-American one year. He lost All-American to an athlete from another country who was 27 years old. I was like, but he was kind of here when he was playing it. But the kid was very good. He was good, so good that when he got an offer to play in England to get his master's and play volleyball.
Wow.
And while he was there, he had a great time. He loves to travel. His kid was just up and go in a heartbeat. While he was there, he finished his master's. They offered it to him we could do it in 1 year. So he went there, got his master's in education. And then while he was there, he got picked up to play professional volleyball in Germany for 4 years.
Wow.
So that was a phenomenal experience.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Good for him.
Got all his education out of the way. I had gone there, went to England, went to Germany just to watch him play. It was a lot of fun.
That's
a lot
great.
of fun. And he's back home because his 5-year teaching certification was he had to start teaching.
Okay.
So he lives in Astoria, loves the city. That's I guess everybody's entitled to their opinion. And he teaches in Harlem. He's 6'6", so doesn't have any problems in Harlem. So he's good.
6'6".
6'6", yeah.
Wow.
He's a 6th grade ESL, I think English is second language, but he loves it. He loves what he does.
Yeah, that's good.
My middle guy is currently living in Maine. Went to school in Maine. He went up there for forestry, environmental sciences. He went up there also to play hockey. He did not make the team, and then he decided that he would referee. So he started refereeing.
Great.
And while he was working on getting all his schooling together, and he started out in Pee Wees, then he started out in junior high school, then he started out in high school.
Mhm.
Last year, he signed a contract with the AHL, the American Hockey League, which is pretty much the farm teams for the NHL.
Okay.
And he did very well up there. So this year, they invited him to a combine, NHL combine in August for possibly a shot to being an NHL linesman this year. So very, very proud of him too. Very proud of him. Yeah.
What's his name?
That's Michael.
That's
Michael. And the youngest guy, he is AJ. I killed me to talk him out of becoming a cop because of post George Floyd and everything else. I said, I don't want you to be a part of that. It's horrible. The whole climate has changed or anything. So he ended up going to University of Albany SUNY Albany for Homeland Security. They had a new up and coming program. They had a phenomenal program there. He liked it. He went there. He was doing good. During his junior year, New York State Police have their campus on the SUNY Albany campus.
Okay.
He said, Dad, they're recruiting. I think I should take the test. Take the test. Why not? You have to take a test eventually.
Mm-hmm.
He took the test. He got an 82. He called. He goes, oh, I got an 82. I'm not going to be a trooper. Well, a month later, they call him.
Good.
And I started talking to the investigator one day. I said, how do you get an 82? How do you get a call with an 82? He said, well, no one wants to be a cop anymore. It's just post George Floyd and everything else. So he ended up doubling up his junior year. He took a lot of credits. He was a few credits shy of walking his graduation, but they gave it to him. He was allowed to walk. He finished it in the summer. He went in October. He graduated. He's currently out of the academy now. He's working out in the Hamptons doing his field training, loving it. Why wouldn't you? Driving around the Hamptons all day. And he's going to be assigned probably about 2 weeks. About a month now. He'll be assigned upstate.
Okay.
Yes, in Livingston, New York. I don't even know where it is.
Okay.
So, but eventually he'll get back down here.
Okay.
So all my boys, it's scary. It's a little, when he plays hockey too, so he'll be playing for the state team.
That's great.
Yeah. So I'm very proud of them. They're all kids have a lot of choices these days.
Yes.
And I used to drill something in them that they even repeat to me. They used to say, "Oh, what was that? What you do in a heartbeat could last your lifetime." I used to drill that into them, and it's at the point where they still repeat it to me. It's funny. It's funny. It's like a little joke. A Jew and a heartbeat can last your lifetime. Don't screw up everything.
That-
So, and they've all done well. I have no complaints. So they've all done well. Thank God.
Wonderful.
Very proud of them.
Very
Very
good.
proud of them.
Very good.
Yeah.
Are you currently married?
No, I'm divorced.
Excellent.
Been divorced for a few years.
Okay.
But we made amends. So it's I'm in a relationship now for a couple of years too.
Good.
5, 6 years. Yeah. So.
Good.
But yeah.
Wonderful.
So far so good.
Yeah. Are your parents still with us?
Yes, they are. My dad, God willing, he'll be 90 on Thursday, the 18th.
Wow.
He'll be 90. Yeah. He's still got his wits about him and everything else. A little slower, but he's doing fine. He's not his walker, but he still gets around. He's having a normal conversation with him. He's not seeing, someone that died 12 years ago sitting at the kitchen table, like that.
Oh, that's nice.
My mother is still, she's 87, and she's, as any 87-year-old would be. Yeah, they're both here.
Yeah,
Both here.
good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Wonderful. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
sure.
a little bit about your
No
family.
problem.
Wonderful. Can we just take a quick break? Okay, Glenn. Can you take me to 9/11 and your memories of that day and how you got there, what you remember most?
If I give you something a little significant the day before.
Yes, of course, please.
Well, he took I only had 2 children at the time, Stephen and Michael. Stephen was 6, Michael was 4. We went to Disneyland, Disney World. Whichever one's in Florida. Disney World.
Yeah.
Had a great time. I always used to take my kids. They really didn't miss the first 2 days of school. They missing color triangles and all the other stuff. So first day of school didn't matter to me that too much. So we would go. The rates would be great. We go just there are no lines in stores because kids go back to school in Florida like the middle of August. So there's no lines. So we went back. We were returning home on the night of September 10th, and we were coming. It was a beautiful, clear night. And my kid, the smaller guy, Michael, he wasn't feeling good. He had a ear infection from being in the pool the whole time on vacation. So he had an ear infection, and it was hurting him the day before. And so now we're starting to descend into LaGuardia Airport. So we fly, and now he's trying to chew gum. His ears are popping. He's getting loud. I'm getting embarrassed, So I'm holding on to him. He's 4 years old. My one son is sitting on the window seat. Beautiful, beautiful, clear night, and the plane banks, and my son is crying, almost screaming, and we go over the World Trade Center. So I never forget, my son is like, Dad, I want to land. It's okay, we're going to get there. And all of a sudden, my oldest son, Stephen, who's looking out the window, he says, look, Mike, we're higher than the Twin Towers. He goes, what? He goes, look, we're higher than the Twin Towers. And he bolted from me holding him, across my wife, and then right into my other son where he was sitting, just to see that we were higher than the Twin Towers. And for some reason, the ear infection didn't bother him anymore. It was by grace of God. It was an amazing thing, So we came home that night, and next day, okay, we're gonna wake up. We're gonna call the pediatrician and everything else. So I got on the phone with the pediatrician, and I'm on hold like everybody. It's right a little before 9 o'clock. They open at 8:30. So I'm on hold, and they have a radio station while I'm on hold, and so. Breaking news, a plane just struck the World Trade Center. I said, oh, wow. I told my wife, Lorraine, put the TV on. The plane just struck the World Trade Center. So as I'm on hold with that, I'm watching TV for a while, and all of a sudden, I see the second plane go in. And I said, that's not an accident. And everything was just silent. I was like, oh my God, that's not an accident. And then the world just started to unwrap. Unravel, I should say, all in front of us. The Pentagon, Shanksville, everything else. So I obviously, in time, I was like, I have a feeling I'm going to have to go in. I was on vacation, and I was due back to go to work, like the day 2 days later, probably that Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
So I said, I'm sure I have to go to work. I'm sure. So. There wasn't many. The cell phone service was down completely. My brother-in-law's, there were 2 cops and a fireman. So they all worked in Manhattan.
Okay. Wow.
So phone calls back and forth. Our family could not get in touch with any of them. Couldn't get in touch with her. I know they all worked in Lower Manhattan. And I was just like, oh, this is going to be horrible. Now I'm going in, you know. So eventually, they required so many people to come into work that they had it over the news. You know, all New York City, off duty New York City Fire Department, Police Department, EMS report to your stations. So eventually, I got a phone call from one of the PBA delegates. He said, "Just get here when you can, because we're just going to make it happen that day." You know. So, excuse me. I ended up at that point. They closed down the Long Island Expressway, actually at Nassau County. And before I left, I was always an organized person. My wife, not all the time, but that's just, you know, what makes you work. Every time I had an insurance policy, we had I had a plot and everything else. I had it in one folder, and it was in a little metal bookcase where I had all the insurance policy, all that stuff. And right before I got dressed, I went dressed to go to work. I said, "Oh, come here a second. I want to show you something." I took out this one folder. I said, "Listen, if something happens to me, everything's in here. Just give it to your best friend. You don't have to do anything, but just hand this to her. Everything is in here. The insurance policies, the plot, the cemeteries, everything you need is in here. I hope you don't have to use it, but if I don't see you again, everything's in here. Just hand it to your friend. She'll help you out with this, and it's all in one place." Okay. So I left for work, and it's very, very weird, like just very strange feeling, because you just put on 10 wing, and every station, there's no music, every station, it's just there's more and more going on. So when I finally got to, I lived at that point, I guess I lived in Wisconsin. That was at 58. So as I'm driving in, I see some brake lights, and then people getting off, and I knew they had it shut down at Route 110. So I stopped, and there was a highway patrol, Nassau County Highway Patrol sergeant. He had stopped the cars, and you'll see people showing credentials, and he had a lot of, it's called hash marks, which is when you see a police officer, especially in the long sleeve shirts, they have these hash marks on their arms. That stands for every 5 years of service. Usually they wear. This gentleman had probably 6 or 8 of these things, so he probably had 35 years, 40 years of service. Right. So gray-haired gentleman, just the highway patrol. He had the boots, the whole 9 yards, and they have their thing, and it's great. So I stopped. And I said, "Good morning, sir. How are you, sir?" I said, "I'm New York City Police Department. I'm going in." He said, "Okay." And I'll never forget this as long as I live. This man of just years of experience, to my whatever I guess I had 15 years at the time, but he easily doubled my time. Right before I gave my stuff back, and he stands at attention. He salutes me. And he says, "God bless you." I'll never forget that as long as I live. I was like, "Thank you." And this man was a police officer. He was a sergeant, and he's just saluting me dressed like this going into work, because I guess as much as he has had his career, and he's had a good career, he's never had to face what all these police and fire and EMS have had to face. Right. You could just tell. Right. And I guess that was his way of just showing us the ultimate respect. Yes. And I wasn't the only person that he did it to, but I don't know if that was, where are we now? I couldn't even do the math. How many years? 23. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it's funny, I was at a party probably about 4 years ago, and I was just talking. I went to somebody's house with somebody else. I didn't even know what it was, and someone mentioned that their dad was they're talking about 9/11, and I overheard it, and it was my dad was a highway sergeant in Nassau County and everything else. I said, "Was he working there?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, he did." And I believe I met his daughter. Oh my God. And I conveyed that story to her, and I'll never forget that. She says, "I can see my dad doing that." I said, "Yeah," and he had passed. I said, "Well, I tell you right now," I said, "if that was your dad," I'll never forget that as long as I live. Oh, I said, just the fact that the respect that he gave to me and people in my position, like, because he knew we were going, and he was going home. Yeah. He was going home, but someone was going to relieve him, but we weren't, and we were going in, and there was no guarantee that we were going to be coming home. Right. And he knew that. Right. And all that he could do was to surrender a salute. You know, I was like, I'll never forget that. I was like, oh wow. You know, so we got to work, and it was just like just if you could use the term organized chaos, I guess it was. You know, it was just they had minimum man of cars going out, but by the time I had gotten in, they had sent whoever they were going to send in. So we had to block off. First night we had to block off all the. My precinct was in Bayside at the point, 111 precinct. So we had to block off all entrances to get into getting on any major roadways,
Yeah.
LA. So we just stayed there and we just listened to the radio and the madness. Put it on citywide, so we just listened to the madness that was ensuing the whole time down there. It was just like, what is going on? You know, it just there was still no chaos. You know, we're 12 hours into this, and there's still no sense of order. You know, it's just mad, just chaos all the radio. There's people screaming and this and everything. And so I went home that night, and then the next day they said, you know, just come in, and we.
So did you make it in that night?
Never made it in that night.
Okay.
We were dying to go in. We didn't go that night. Next day we came in very, very early, and we ended up going in immediately. You hop on a bus, and we go in, and it was a staging area away from you know, a few blocks away from the towers. I wasn't a Manhattan guy, so I wasn't really familiar with Manhattan. Mm-hmm. Some other guys had worked in Manhattan, so I didn't really know where I was going. So. Mm-hmm.
So where were you working? Because you were at NYPD.
I was working in Queens. I was working in Bayside, Queens, yeah. But it really didn't matter what number you had on your collar brass. Right. You know, I'm sorry, did I just...
No, you're
okay. So everyone was just going. You know, it was 16 acres, and there were 2,500 first responders down there. Yeah.
Wow.
Not to mention the construction workers, thank God. You know, the payloaders just giving us, you know, roads to go through, you know, to get in there.
So what were your first impressions when you got to the site?
Well, when I got to the site, we were walking. We were staying in the staging area, and then we were walking up the block. And as we got there, it was dark. It was getting dark, and I saw. You see the lights, you hear the cranes, and you hear all the heavy machinery going on. And I'm looking in front of me, and I as you can see a building. You see the rubble of a building, and I was like, wow, my God, look at that. And then we just crossed a line. I think it was at Fulton Street. Just cross a building line, and I felt something on my left shoulder, like someone's trying to hit me, but they kept missing. You know, like they were like fanning away from something. And I was just staring at this building. I said, "What?" And I looked over. There was a person next to me, and I was looking at Building 7, which just slid. It collapsed later on in the day. Right. But I didn't. I thought I was looking at the World Trade Center. That was to my left. But once you cross the building line, my eyes were fixated on that building, which I thought was a World Trade. I had no idea. Right. And then this person tapped my shoulder, and I said, "What?" He said, "Look." And we looked to my left, and that was everything. Everything. That was the two collapses and the bull. Just everything was right there. And you can't even. You don't have a chip big enough to process it. It just looks surreal. Yeah. And you almost I never forget. You know, people say, "Oh, there was a wave of emotion." I literally felt a wave of emotion. It was a physical feeling of a wave of emotion, and you took a breath like, "Oh wow, oh my God," you know. And then it didn't last long. You didn't have a chance to process it. I heard, "Let's go. This isn't gonna get done by itself." Some lieutenant was just screaming at us, "Just get over there," just screaming at us to get in the pile. You know, get in the pile and start getting on the bucket brigade. You know, to start digging and everything else. And that's what we did, you know. And then you instructed if you saw a body part in a bucket, just stop, and someone would go over. They kind of geo-positioned it, I believe. Someone would come by with some type of tool,
a scanner of sorts.
Yeah, it was something like that, and they would just they would just geo-position where they found that body part, and then somebody from the ME's office, or there were cops there. They would take it very delicately, put it in a body bag, and bring it down to the ME. But you would just keep going. You just keep going and going, and eventually you just keep moving closer and closer to the center, you know. And you have to.
Just for people watching, ME stands for
medical examiner.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we actually didn't see the medical examiner but there were certain police officers from property. They had scooters, and if we found body parts, they would come by and they would put them in one of the body bags, and they'd bring them over to the medical examiner's office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would categorize everything, any type of rings or anything else like that. Yeah. So you just kept digging, and I think the first night, the weird part about it was they had a gentleman who was an engineer. I found out later, in a lifeguard chair. He was right by Liberty Plaza. Liberty Plaza was a building that was right near there, and it was a tall building, not as tall as World Trade Center, but the building was compromised, and they had laser lines on 4 corners of the building, and there was this engineer in this lifeguard chair, and whenever these lasers would come off sync because of all the pounding, and whenever the building would twist, and whenever the the heavy equipment was working nearby, or whatever it was, it would come out of the perimeter of these lasers, and he would have to hit an air horn 3 times. So if you hear 3 blasts of the air horn, run for your life, because that's literally exactly what you're doing. You're running for your life, because that means that building might be coming down too.
Oh my goodness.
Like, okay, so I'll never forget the first time. Never forget the first time that thing went off. I just started to run so fast, and as I'm running, I realized, I was like, "The hell is that?" I started to limp, and funny, if I laugh at it now. But I started to limp, and I saw something come ahead of me. I ran out of my shoes. I literally ran out of my shoes. I was running so fast that one shoe flew off, and it was like it flew up in front of me. I'm like, "Why am I limping? I had no shoe." And I realized that was the shoe.
Oh my God.
I ran out of my shoes. That's how fast I was running. Because when you heard those 3 horns, like go, like just go, just go, get out of here. 7 Liberty Plaza's coming down. Liberty Plaza's coming down. I'm like, what? Liberty Plaza might be coming down. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, don't we have enough here?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll never forget that. I ran out of my shoes. So from that day on, I'll tell you right now, I mean, it took me a long time to wear a pair of Skechers, because I would tie my shoes. I don't know how my toes would breathe. I was surprised my feet weren't black and blue. I would tie my shoes so tight.
Oh my
It was the
God.
weirdest thing in the world. I would just always tie. People look like, "What? My God, what are you all right? It's fine. Trust me, it's fine." I would tie my shoes so tight because I never wanted to get, because especially with sneakers, it's a different story because the lace is a cloth. But when you have dress shoes, they're almost like, they're a weird, different material, very thin. And they come loose every now and again, but you don't run in dress shoes, trust me. You can avoid it, they're not made for that, especially running from fallen buildings, but yeah, so it flew off, so it was interesting, very interesting. And then, I'll never forget that either. That was someday, so, but we were there, and we were just, I guess, doing what we had to do, a lot of people we didn't find, so I guess I got there that Wednesday, they found one. It was the last time they found somebody alive. It was the last time they found somebody alive, was that Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like cheers, like, like you're at a ball game, because you get so many. And I remember there was so many hospitals on standby, and they called in all these extra new. If somebody's wife was a nurse, they said, "Oh, my wife, they got called in." Everybody got called in. And they were just sitting in these emergency rooms, waiting for people to come in, and nobody was coming in.
So sad.
Nobody was coming in. But what you saw, you saw people who were just, obviously you saw parts of people, that was the hardest part, and some people who just the way they were mangled. And but then you saw a lot of notes. You saw a lot of little notes, like Timmy's baseball game, 7:00 tonight, and that was the stuff that, you saw a lot of those just flying in the air. And that was the stuff that parent is never going to see. And he was going to do that night. He was going to work, and he was going to get off the train. And I could see it. I could see the mother getting off the train, and she had her sneakers on, or the father got off the train, and he had his, he would take his tie off from his sleeves, and he'd run from the parking lot to catch his kid at bat, like I used to do, and that he's not going to have that anymore. He's not going to have that anymore. And I remember afterwards there's still a group called Tuesday's Children, I believe it's called. Yeah.
Yes.
For how many orphans? I don't even want to know how many orphans there were that day. Yeah, but it was I guess it's surreal, because it's impossible to process immediately. Absolutely impossible to process immediately. Yeah. There's no way you could just, like I said, you have chips large enough to process it. So, yeah. But the things you see too down there, they were just horrible. They're just absolutely horrible.
Would you like to describe some of those things?
Yeah. A lot of the human loss, was horrible. You know, some people who were above the one of the crash sites. They, I wasn't there for this because the buildings were already down, but in their desperation, you know, you're above like the 70th floor, someone else, they would take the full length curtains and they would jump with the curtains, thinking it would be a parachute.
Oh,
Yeah, you know, and these people, you'd see them, they would just be, you know, you can't even tell how a body just explodes like a watermelon at that rate, you know, that thing, and you'd see like, what are they wrapped in? What is that? And someone said that's a curtain. And you're like, one guy's like, I was here yesterday, and there were people just before it fell, there were people just jumping out of the 70, 80 stories up. And they thought that was going to be the bed, I guess, burning alive. But the weird part about it was these were two 110-story buildings, 1,250 feet tall. Yeah. And I did not see one desk, chair, computer, anything that resembled an office. Yeah. There wasn't one. Not one. And there were two 110-story office buildings. And just like, wow, where is everything? Where is it? You know, what the hell's going on here? This building wasn't empty. You know, it wasn't empty. And then you start to become cognizant of that smell. That smell was everywhere. That burn, whatever it was. I think it obviously burned for over 100 days. You know, yeah. And you know, when you got there, they gave you a box of masks. You know, what now we know as N95s. Before COVID, back then it was those. And you'd put one on, and within an hour, that white mask was black. So they give you a box. They never give you one or two. They give you a box. I think a box had 20 or 50, whatever it was. So like, why do you give you a box? It's just me, you need a box. So every hour, you look at somebody and like, your mask is black. So I take it off. The mask is black. Take it off. And it would just, you look at it, compare to them, like, oh my God, how is this so filthy? But that was the air quality, the lack of air quality.
Yeah.
And it was just something that we did. You're on autopilot. Right. Everyone was doing what they were doing, and no matter where you were, you know, then you would see somebody. Eventually, it was face-to-face relief, and then 17, 18 hours later, whatever it is, the next tour would come in, and you would just do it, and you just had no. But the thing that struck me the worst was hard was the area was fenced in eventually. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the spectators, you know, the people were, you know, out there. They were supporting us, which was beautiful. First time in a long time I saw people supporting us, dropping stuff off at the precincts and giving us water. But many people were giving us, as we were walking to the site, they were giving us paid papers with their children's pictures, or their loved ones' pictures. And it's, you know, it's say missing, you know, and pictures of it. And some people would walk in the street. Oh, if you see him, please, you know, please call me. And they would hand these. They'd be all over. These posters or these signs would be all over the fences. Mm-hmm. You know, and there were thousands of them, But sometimes, every now and then, there'd be a family member there who would hand them to you. They'd hand them to you. And you know, some guys would be like, I'm gonna throw this out. You know, they would get inside, throw it out. And for some reason, I just fold it up, undo a button, I would slide it in my shirt. And when I got home, when I got back to the precinct, eventually, I would just. Sometimes you get 4 or 5 a day. Yeah. I couldn't throw them out. I couldn't go to par with them. And it wasn't until many, many years later. They were in my locker. They had them in my locker. I just had them somewhere in my locker. I must have had probably like 25 or 30 of them. Wow. I could never actually just throw them away. Yeah. But at some point, I just said, you know what, it's time. I just have to let these go. Yeah. You know, I felt so bad just throwing them out. Yeah. You know, because that was that person's last hope. You know, and I always remember too. I always remember this when I train people too. I said, you know, people will always remember the police officer that they dealt with, and always remember why. Either you know, the car accident, the child, whatever. The parents had a heart attack, something like that. They always remember the police officer. So I said, I'm not going to treat these people with any sense of disrespect because they're at such a loss now. So I just kept it. And they don't know what I did with it. You know what I mean? But I couldn't, I just couldn't write in my own conscience, put this piece of paper with that person's information and picture in the garbage. You know, and at some point I did something with it. I forget what I did with it, but I don't know what I did with it. But it was I didn't get rid of it disrespectfully. I know that, but I don't remember what I did with it. But I know it just came time where I had to separate myself from these. I didn't look at them every day, but I knew where they were. There was a stack of folded papers in my closet, in my locker, and even when I left there, I had them for many years, even when I was a summer cop.
Wow.
And no one else would understand why, but I was just like, I just couldn't be disrespectful to these images and these people who gave them to me.
It's hard to throw away.
Yeah, because they gave them to me. They gave them to me for a reason, you know, and then they'll never forget. You know, like I said, they'll never forget me. I couldn't tell you what they look like if we were sitting in this room right now, but they gave it to me. You know, so
it's very nice.
It was important for me to just give them some dignity. Yeah. They had nothing. I felt bad. The poor people had nothing. Yeah. So.
Can we just take a quick break? So Glenn, how long were you down there at Ground Zero?
All in all, 4.5 months. I was also with when I wasn't digging on the Bucket Brigade, I was also part of a volunteer organization at the time called PAPA. It was police officer or MAP, Members Assistance Program, or police officers providing peer assistance. And interestingly enough, there we go. We were just trained. There was a bit of an issue with the department, and the PAPA unit or MAP unit, the peer support unit, was a unit of cops who were volunteered and got selected and were trained. And it was a collaboration of all the unions, and they were to deal with, excuse me, any type of cops that had some type of crisis. So we would work. It was a hotline, and the only prerequisite was they had to call us. We couldn't reach out to them. It was completely confidential, as opposed to them going to the department and everything else. So we had a lot of success with it. You would get the hotline every couple of weeks, and you would handle the calls, and you would meet with them and everything else. In the 6 or 8 years I was doing it, I took 3 guns off cops who were going to hurt themselves.
Wow.
So there was a lot of pride in that. But prior to 9/11, the director of the program, his name was Bill Janae, he wanted us to have more of a active role because the department, especially in New York City, if you were involved in a shooting or you're involved with something and you had to get help through psych services, it was kind of an end of your career.
Right.
You know, they would take your guns and they sometimes it was an overreaction, where sometimes people just needed somebody to talk to, just to unwind, just to decompress.
Yeah.
But they didn't see it that way, So Bill Janae, he trained us. He got the money from unions, went to this organization who comes in and they change with CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
It's called CISM. They teach Critical Incident Stress Management.
Okay.
And they teach you how to deal with PTSD. So just a few months earlier, we were going to be trained as trauma teams, so we could go in and do debriefings if there's any type of major incident. Not ever thinking of 9/11,
right.
But any type of a school shooting or mass casualty incident, so we can go and debrief police officers.
Wow.
Now at the time, psychologically, there was something called the Eberly-Mitchell model, and the Eberly-Mitchell model was a debriefing model, which people went into a room. There was one person who moderated it, and then you would talk about it. People would share. Those are the models that we were using. We were stationed at the Federal Reserve Building.
Okay.
So we'd ask people to come in voluntarily, that we told them that this is here for us if you need it. So we would do that, and they would come in and we'd have groups. I was one of the moderators. I was doing it. So it was a good experience. Unfortunately, after Gulf War One, because that was based on one traumatic incident, the Eberly-Mitchell model, where these guys would get into firefights, 2 or 3 hours at a time, twice a day. They threw that model out the door. So there were new models after that. But we were trained in this stuff to be on a trauma team for some incident. So when that happened, when 9/11 happened, we set up shop in the Federal Reserve Building, and we would walk around and say, listen, if you need anything, we have brochures. If you need anything, just come talk to us. And people did. Firemen, police officers, they came in, and we do the briefings. They're pretty. I would assume they were successful, because we would hear so many that at the end of the day, we would all have to debrief also. We'd have to, we'd have to, because you
course.
just hear so much. Not that you would have so much of your own memories, and you hear these other memories, and they were just brutal.
Wow.
So we would also debrief all the time too.
Wow.
So it was a different. I had two different sides of the sword down there. I would hear. We would do the digging and everything else, and see what we saw there, and then we would get other people's stories and help them debrief. So
Wow.
there was a lot. Like I said, you don't have chips that could support that much. You just don't.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So how were you? So you would do debriefing for yourself at that point. What were the other ways that you were dealing with that trauma that you were, seeing on a regular basis?
It's funny because at some point I don't think I was home for I don't think I was home for more than a couple hours, like 17 days. I actually had a full day off. After
Wow.
17 days, I had a full day off. And normally, out of the house, you're working 12, 14 hours a day, come home, you wake up, go back, do it again. So the first time I was off like 17 hours, after 17 days, I should say, my wife was like, oh, I'm going to take the kids and I'll just go out. I go, no, I don't want that. I said, I knowing the rules of the training that we had. Just one side step. The first day of that training, I forgot to mention, the first day of that training, the instructor sets up, he says, well, I just want to let you know right now, this is critical incident stress management and how to deal with it, but there's two rules in this business. Rule number one is people die. And rule number two is you can't change rule number one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to try, if you're going to handle this any differently than those rules, leave now, because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one thing that we went into this fresh. A few months later, we went into this fresh. Rule number one, people die. Rule number two is you can't change rule number one.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about now? Bring me back to
So,
So my wife said, first day off at 17 days. So I'll take the kids and put them play. I go, no, I want my normalcy back.
yeah.
Let the kids come here. Let me trip over toys. Let them scream. I don't care. I need that back, because that's the only way I want my normalcy back. Are you sure? I don't know. That's exactly what I want. She didn't realize that was like the way you have to deal with that. That I could be alone all day.
Right.
I was alone in a crowd for so many times.
Right.
And I was alone driving home. I was alone so many different times, but in so many different ways. But I said, no, don't bring them anywhere. I want to hear them scream. I want to hear them fight with each other. And my two kids, the two boys, they were a year and a half apart. I go, they're fighting over something. I go, believe it or not, I'm not going to yell at them. I want to hear that now.
Yeah.
You wanted to that was your normalcy. So you wanted to, I knew that from my training that I wanted to get back to my sense of normalcy, whatever that was.
Right.
So, and that's what I would, I guess, strive for when I was off. The few times you're off. Yeah.
It's just engaging in that sense
Yeah.
of normalcy.
Yeah. But there were a lot of things that you couldn't even share. You couldn't even describe what you saw.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you could never tell anyone about. You couldn't even how could you even describe what it looks like when a person is as thin as that milk crate? They're just contorted, and it's just body part. You just can't even. You can't begin to describe it. You just can't begin to describe it, and then it couples with the smell of death and the smell. It's just all in all, it's just this. I guess this environment that overtakes you in mental, psychologically, emotionally, physically.
Yeah.
It overtakes you in every category you could think of.
Yeah.
And you have no choice.
Yeah. So you worked with this organization, Papa, and you were also working on the pile. But was that, did you were you designated to one or the other on different days?
Well, what happened was
I
was at the pile. All in all, about 4.5 months I was there. But for the majority of it, I was at Papa for, I think, I was assigned there for probably for a week to 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was it. For the most part, I was assigned to the rescue and recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your rank at that time?
A police officer.
Okay.
That's all. Yep. I was a regular guy.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
Wonderful.
Yep.
So moving forward, how have you dealt with, these memories since? Have you been able to talk about it with your family?
The family, Not so much because they really asked. And my youngest son wasn't born. He was born in April of '02,
Okay.
right before I left. The two other guys, like I said, they were 6 and 4.
Yeah, they were little.
So I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't really have much of a conversation with them about it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they learned about it in school. When I saw they were learning about it in school, oh, Dad, you were here, right? Yeah, I was here. Yeah, I was here. And I remember, never forget once when I finally got home. That one day I was home after 17 days. Well, I remember my one son said to me, he's like, "Hey, Daddy, what's up? You all right?" I'm okay. He goes, "Stephen told me, I heard it on the news that the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers aren't there anymore." I was like, that's right. He goes, why aren't they there anymore? And this is the one who was having the ear infection. He goes, "Well, why aren't they there anymore?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he was 4 years old. I was like, well,
Right.
yeah. How do you explain it to a 4-year-old?
Yeah.
Even if I did explain it to him, what is he gonna? What's his skill set for that?
Right.
But I remember when he asked me that just was like putting a knife in my heart. And he was 4 years old,
Right.
and he wasn't trying to hurt me. But just that gave it more of a realization that this is something that is never gonna go away.
Yes.
And I can't put my 4-year-old on my lap and explain why that happened or how it happened.
Yeah.
This is going to be different. This is going to be hard. This is going to go through the rest of my life. Yeah.
How do you think, serving down there for that 4.5 months, seeing what you saw, how do you feel like that impacted you as a person?
Well, I'm also a cancer survivor. So I would say that there were some parallels between the two of them.
Okay.
And one would be that don't ever take life for granted. Tomorrow is promised to no one. And I would say the biggest thing that got me was the notes from people's desks, even shopping lists. That just, don't forget the milk. You know what I mean? Just like stupid, shopping lists that were just a piece of scrap paper on the ground that we pick up in the bucket.
It's life.
Yeah,
Those
it's just
are
a
pieces of
regular,
life.
it's just regular life. And those are the things that bothered me the most. Because these are things that are so commonplace that I would do every day. Everyone in this room would do every day. And you're never going to be able to do that again. It's the stupidest thing. I laugh about it too. Because I tell people the biggest thing that got me were the notes. What do you mean notes? I said, people would just make, you're at work one day, you're in the middle of something, and all of a sudden, oh shit, whatever. My son's got a hockey practice day. I got to take him there at 7:00. And I write myself notes everywhere. But so did everyone else. So did everyone else.
Yeah.
And that was their life. Their life was they were going to work for whatever it is, 8 to 10 hours. They were going to come home and they were going to go to whatever their life was. They were going to, who had pre-Cana. I saw one note, they had pre-Cana meeting one night. Then there was a stupid shopping list. There were 4 things on a shopping list, and I'm just crying over that. I was like, oh my, and I'm stupid me. I'm like, man, he's not going to bring this stuff home. And in a couple of days from now, they're going to be talking about like, oh my God, do we have his body? And he's still not going to have that stuff that they needed, And it was stupid. I was like, oh my God, he needed milk, and they're still not going to have it. Someone's have to go out and get these people the milk. And I just wanted to go buy the milk for them. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was weird because it was just like everyone's life just got shelved, and by no fault of anybody's. You know what I mean? And it was so disruptive, to say the least, and it was the notes just killed me. Those notes just, I'm a big guy. I've seen a lot of shit. I got to be honest with you. Babies in dumpsters, I've seen a lot of stuff, but these little notes on a piece of paper of how someone's going to just, start their life, their family life once they leave work that day. And they're not going to have that. They're not going to have that option. That was the worst part about it for me. I mean, the smell, the body parts, to me, I remember when I was in the city police academy that you have to watch an autopsy. You have to go to Bellevue and watch an autopsy. Or the MEs have to watch an autopsy. And everybody's in there. And I was like, oh my God, this is brutal. But they had a ventilation system there. Right? I remember, so I'm getting in front of the ventilation system because everything's going to blow out. And I'm not going to smell anything coming in. But I remember, I remember the one instructor said, he goes, okay, if you feel faint, let me know. And he always kept saying, take it for what it is, not what it was. Look at it for what it is, not what it was. And I remember when I got down there and I started seeing my first slew of body parts, and there was no, just the way we have pens in the room right now, there were body parts in the room, And I just kept saying to myself that 1,000 times, take it for what it is, not for what it was. So, and that's what you had to, you had to, I always joke with my kids that everything in life is perception, and that at that point, and really, if it wasn't for my training, I don't know, thank God we had that critical incident stress management training just a few months prior.
Yeah.
Because and cops they just suppress stuff and they don't talk about it, and before you know it, they're on a roof, and they're gonna go. It's horrible, but I remember that I just kept saying, okay, take it for what it is, not what it was. You don't know the person who was attached to this arm or this half a leg or whose foot is in that boot. You don't know that person, but that's the only thing that got me past it. It was, and even to ask somebody, hey, on the ride home, hey, Vinny, all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Why? All right, I'm not looking to fight with you, dude. I'm just looking to see if you're all right. That it immediately starts from there, because you have to put up some type of defenses. Right. You have no choice. You have to. If you don't, you're done.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be doing it for God knows how long.
Yeah. Do you feel like you suppressed?
Oh, without a doubt, I did. Yeah, but you can't. But to be honest with you, the problem is you can't suppress just that. You suppress your whole life, and so the problems begin.
What do you mean by that?
Well, my wife, oh, you don't talk to me, you don't talk to the kid, you're an introvert. Yeah, I am, because what do you want me to do? And then it just starts.
Yeah.
And then it just starts, and it's you're faced with a situation that was just, I mean, when you look at a reporter trying to describe the scene, and this person's a professional reporter and they can't put words to that. Yeah. How am I supposed to live that? Yeah. So it's really, it was very difficult, and I was trained how to deal with difficulty. Yeah. And it was very difficult for me.
So talk to me a little bit more on how it affected your relationship with your wife.
I was very aware and consciously aware of the I guess the symptoms of PTSD, with the reckless spending, it's everything else, but, it's the reckless spending, have an apathetic attitude towards a lot of different, oh, let's go parachuting, whatever, I was consciously aware of the risks and the symptoms and the signs of PTSD. So I tried not to fall into those traps. But then I would introvert. I always had an issue with it, because my wife was told, you never really talk about work. I said, because I deal with people, when I come home from work just on a regular daily basis, I'm not, every day. So I'm going to work and I'm arguing with people, or someone's having a bad day and they're calling me there. So when I come home, I don't want to talk about work, because I want that to be my happy place. Right. To coin a stupid phrase, I don't want. Yeah, nothing's going to be perfect at home, but I don't want to take that the same stuff I'm dealing with at work. I don't want that to come home, because when we start to argue about something, my wife is Irish, so of course we're going to argue about stuff, but I was like, all right, whatever. I wouldn't give her an argument, She's like, just argue with me. I'm like, I don't want to argue with you, because I don't want to fight. So I'm going to argue with people and fight with them at work. I don't want to do this home, right? Which doesn't help for the communication in the marriage. It doesn't help at all, And that just kind of suppressed me even more, introverted me even more. And I remember there was a saying that someone had put out somewhere. Thomas Jefferson had said something. Says, if there must be war, let it be on my time, so my children can live in peace. I remember that, and I remember just saying, that's the way I feel right now. Let's just do this and get this over with, and so my kids don't have to ever see that. Yeah. And it was always a constant reminder. Like once you went into that fence, there was just nothing you could do to make you forget what you were doing. Yeah. You go back 24 hours later, there was a little more leeway. But then you're there another day. There were two. There was like a 4-story hole, and there was a 7-story pile. just all condensed and flattened.
Mhm.
So I know one day we were in the hole and it was pouring rain out. We were doing the bucket brigade in the hole, and the blast went off 3 blasts, and we tried to run up the makeshift road they had, and we just kept sliding down. We kind of ran up the thing, and it just kept sliding down from all the metal. It just kept sliding down. Like, let's go. And finally, we were just so exhausted. We're like, let's just stay here, because we looked up from the hole and we could see the Liberty Plaza. I'm like, well, if it falls, they know where we were. You know what I mean? Let's just stay here. That was like, but I said, at that point, it becomes about perception.
Right.
You can't really have any long-term goals there, because everything's out of your control.
Right.
Everything's out of your control.
Right.
And then, so you just tack on a different perception that, okay, well, if we stay in this hole and that building does come down, at least they know there were the guys from the 111 who were in that hole. So when we recover them eventually, we know who they were.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a sixth sense of humor. But
Yeah.
you always, you had to have that. You had to
Yeah.
have that because you can't shit the bed right away every time something like that happens.
Right.
You'd take your guns and you wouldn't be doing much of anything right now. But yeah, so it impacted everyone very differently. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I think the impacts can be very personal, but when you go home to your home life, whatever home life that was, the impacts were always multiplied because you were dealing with you, and then you were dealing with what you had, your responsibilities as a parent, as a brother, as a mother, whatever you had to do.
How do you think it impacted your relationship with your children?
I think it did impact the relationship with my children because I know now that my fuse was always a lot shorter, and that I would if I could change that I would, and my wife said it too when we were going through everything. She said, "The kids are afraid of you." I go, "Why are they afraid of me?" Because you come home and there's stuff on the floor, and you're like, "Well, just put your coat in the closet, do that." And then as soon as you walk in the door, you're doing that. I'm like, I if I am, I'm sorry. I don't realize I'm doing it, But I just wanted some organization, because everything else was in my mind was chaos.
Right.
If I walk in my own foyer and there's toys all over the place and there's coats on the floor, the closet's right there. Why can't you just put them in the closet?
Right.
I guess in my own way, I was being selfish because I wanted some organization to the chaotic life that I was dealing with during that time period.
Right.
But I could understand that. Could my wife and my young kids understand that? No, and so, now we have an issue, And then instead of arguing about it, I'll put my tail between my legs and I'll go in another room because I don't want to argue about it because I've been finished arguing with people all day long. And what suffers? My relationship with my children, my relationship with my wife.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a difficult it's basically an algorithm. It's a difficult algorithm to follow.
Yeah.
The truth,
So how did you acknowledge that shift with your family? Did you seek mental health counseling? Tell me about how you navigated.
Oh, I did. It's funny. A few years afterwards, probably 4 years afterwards, I lived in Wisconsin at the time, which is right across from the Smith Haven Mall. And they were taking down this big store there named Stearns. If you went to Smith Haven Mall, you'd see Dick's and this little atrium there where you go on the side by the Apple store, if that means that, right? Okay, so before that, there was a big store named Stearns and a couple other stores. So every year I would take a vacation in May and I would do my lawn. And my lawn was it was beautiful. I was one of the only people who didn't have a pool in my block. And I love that because I would just give my neighbors cases of Heineken while they were buying cases of chlorine. Okay, so my kids would be in the pool all the time, and I would take care of them, and my kids were happy in somebody else's pool. But my lawn, all the kids were always on my lawn because they were always playing ball because they didn't have lawns; they had big pools back there, So I was always fertilizing my lawn. I'd cut in a different direction, another way, and I always took care of my lawn. I had the best lawn in the whole block, and it was funny. So in May, I would take it out, and I put my pre-emergent down, and I'd cut it, and I'd fertilize it and aerate it and everything. So this particular May, I'm on vacation, and I just start hearing, I hear all these noises, these construction noises. And they're doing the construction at the mall, which is literally, I can walk to it. And as I'm hearing this stuff, day one, day two, I'm like, why do I feel so weird? By the end of day two, I realize that that's my trigger. I'm hearing all these construction noises again. And now I'm having flashbacks of back to the World Trade Center. This is probably 4 to 5 years afterwards.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God. So I didn't do anything. I wouldn't stay around my house. the whole time.
Wow.
I didn't want to hear that noise. They would pack up about 4 o'clock and go back outside. Sometimes I didn't walk out of the house. If I didn't have something to do, I wouldn't leave the house because I didn't want to hear I didn't want to hear the noise. Because that noise was such a trigger for me. I was like, oh, I can't listen to that again. But if I had something else to do, I'll get it. I gotta go. So I'll get it. I'll go. And I would leave. I'd run in the car. I'd put the radio on. I'd leave as quick as I could, not to hear that noise. So that was my trigger. I realized that was my trigger,
Okay.
which many people didn't realize it was a trigger. They would just whatever they would do, but they would just walk around, and they wouldn't realize that that was a trigger. So one day, I was out here. I was out here now, and one day I went to CPEP with a psych patient, and there was a doctor there, Dr. Donna Osipowitz was her name.
Say it again.
Donna Osipowitz.
Osipowitz?
Oh, so yeah. She's married now. She's married to 5th Precinct cop, but her name is Donahue now. But she was one of the doctors from CPEP, and she had an office right outside. Oh, hi Donna, nice. Always coming out because we were always sitting outside waiting for hours to go in. So she said, "How you doing?" I said, "Good." I said, "Can I talk to you a second?" She goes, "Yeah, sure. I'm coming to my office." So I walked right down the hall to her office. And when I walked in, I shut the door behind me. And she goes, "You all right?" I go, "No, I'm not." I said, I told her the whole story. She goes, "Congratulations, you have PTSD." I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, think about it." I go, "Oh my God, you're right, I have PTSD." So at the time, the Red Cross had a program. It was they had some counselors. The Red Cross was funding the counseling. And they had counselors who were just taking the payments from the Red Cross, and it was all confidential. I didn't have to go through, anything else. So I went to this doctor. He actually ended up being a Suffolk cop. Him and his wife, he lived in his house in Port Jeff. So I see him and I talked to him about it. Of course, every time you go to counseling, it always goes down to your relationship. No matter what, whenever they scrape the metal down to the bare metal, they scrape the paint off, it always comes down to your relationships. It's like anything else. There's always other problems in a relationship has more to do with than what you're there for.
Well, I'm glad you recognized that something was wrong and went to seek help. I think that's that's
it's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
That's not easy. No.
Yeah.
I wasn't really one to worry about anybody knowing from me seeking help. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But most people do.
Yeah.
Most people do. And I would say probably 80%, 85% do.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get somebody, especially a cop, to go seek help because they think that it's going to be the end of their career.
Right.
So,
Right.
But the more it goes, the worse it gets. That's what they don't understand.
Right.
So.
Yeah. You spoke briefly before about, you said you're a cancer survivor. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I ended up in, November 19, sorry, November 2019. Well, I always get for years I've had my World Trade Center health program physicals here. Okay. Very, very thorough. I love them. Everybody's here is great. And this one year, I guess I forgot to go to my regular doctor for my annual physical. So she called me and said, "Hey, Glenn, how you doing?" She's an MP. She goes, "Hey, you haven't come in for your physical?" I go, "Yeah, I know." I said, "I get one at the World Trade Center. It's fine." I said, "I get it there. It's very thorough. It's 3 hours." I said, it's fine. I'm good." She goes, "Well, this is a wellness check. This is a wellness thing that once a year. It's no copay. Why don't we have it done anyway?" I said, "All right, girl, I'll do it. No problem. I'll do it. Whatever." She goes, "I'll send you the script for the blood work, and then you bring the World Trade Center blood work, and we'll compare everything, and we'll get you squared away." I said, "All right, fine. I'll shut up." So I go there, and we're sitting around. She does the exam and everything else, and we're talking about stuff. And she says, "Oh, wow, your PSA, that's the prostate serum antibody, something that men have. The PSA, your PSA is a little high." I said, "What?" She goes, what does it say in the World Trade Center paperwork?" So I start looking through it. I go, "It's not here. It's not here." So I think I was called up over there while I was there. I said, "Do you guys check for PSA?" She, "Oh, no, we don't. We don't check for PSA." I'm like, "Really?" She says, "No, we don't do it." I'm like, "That's so strange because we are the demographic. We're males, 45 to 55, whatever. Why wouldn't you do it?" And I come to find out later on that, NIOSH doesn't check for it. They're the ones who write the checks here, but they don't check for that. They don't screen for it. So, but they'll treat it, they'll certify it and treat it and everything else, but they won't check for it. Okay. It's like, okay, fine. So she says, "You should just go get this checked out." So I went there, and she gave me the name of a doctor, so I went to the doctor, and we go there, and we was talking about my history, and he's okay. He says, now I'm going to do an exam. He says, take off your pants, put your elbows on the table, and take off my pants. I said, where should I put my pants? He goes, right there next to mine. I said, no, I'm just joking. But sorry, I couldn't let that go.
Yeah.
So I have this exam, and he says, okay, look, let's do something there. Let's just go for an MRI. So there's a special MRI. They get 3T MRI. I want you to go to Nassau County. So I went there. I get it back. This guy waits almost 5 days to call me back. Meanwhile, I see my symptoms on the portal. I'm looking up on WebMD. I'm Googling everything. I diagnosed myself. I said, oh my God, I have prostate cancer. Like, holy shit, I have prostate cancer. So this guy finally calls me back. And then he says, I go, what are we doing here? He says, yeah, we're going to have to, take this a little further or anything else. I said, okay, what do we do? He's like, this is December 6th of 2019. Okay. I said, okay. So now my kids are coming back from college. One's coming back from Germany. The other one's coming back from Maine. And then the smallest guy is in his senior year. A few more months, he's going away to college. So I'm divorced at the time. So I don't see my kids that much, especially since they're away. So I tell my girlfriend, I go, you're the only one that knows. I said, I'm not telling anyone. I said, because I don't want my kids to say, okay, I'm not going back to school. I'm going to stay here in case you need something. I don't want this to upset their lives. This one guy's in Maine, or, who's in Germany. I said, and the other guy, I don't want to say, I'm going to go to Suffolk Community because I want to be here for you. I didn't want that. And, I see them on Christmas Day. They come over on Christmas morning. I make my challah bread French toast, and I don't want to say, hey, Merry Christmas, Dad has cancer. And then they go back to
Their lives.
their lives. I don't want to do that to them either. So I'm like, okay, how are we going to do this? I told my girlfriend, you're the one. I said, no, I got to deal with this another time. So we have Christmas, everything's fine. I paste a smile on my face. And we do. But this doctor tells me this, before that, this doctor tells me, okay. I say, what do we do? He said, okay, we need to go and, maybe do the biopsy now. I said, we're going to do this next week. He goes, why don't you call me after the holidays? I'm sorry, what did you say? He's, yeah, give me a call after the holidays. Hung up on him as the last time I spoke to him. So I had the MRI results. I reached out to a friend of mine, Tom Wilson, who was coming. He had jaw cancer, and he had tongue cancer and everything else. He's very involved here. So he knew someone here, Deborah Ramos. That was a social worker, I believe. She's great.
Yes.
He put me in touch with her. I said, Deborah, here's what it is. I said, I have prostate cancer. I haven't had here's what we would normally need a tissue sample. I said, well, I went ahead and got an MRI on my own. I said, here's this. She goes, let me see what I can do for you. So I gave her all my information. 2-3 days later, she called me back. She goes, yeah, we're going to certify you. You're one of us. That's good. So I said, okay, good. So I called my friend Tommy. I said, they're going to take me. Now, as a police officer in Suffolk County, my sector included Stony Brook University, the emergency room. I would go there for all the near fatal accidents, sexual assaults, for everything. I would go there for everything. So I knew a lot of nurses. So I said, listen, Stony Brook University, the World Trade Center is helping me. They're gonna take this cancer. I'm gonna need some. I said, I have to pick out a doctor. What do you think? So here's the list. So they said, who do I pick? So they see this doctor named Dr. Dr. Spalaviero. Massimiliano Spalaviero. That was his name.
Spalaviero?
Spalaviero, yes.
Okay.
He goes, that's the guy. I go, why? He goes, because the residents hate him. I go, what do you mean? He goes, he's a perfectionist when he goes into surgery. If he doesn't get it right, he's going to do it again.
Well, that's
the man I want.
That's the guy.
Man I want.
That's the guy.
Trained in Italy. Sweetheart of a man. Sweetheart of a man. So I go to meet him, and we do the biopsy. I remember God did not make a little hatch to check the prostate. I don't know what he did. He may have ran out of parts or something, but there's only one way to check a prostate. And it's not very comfortable. Okay, so, and the other thing too is when you're doing, if you're sitting there with a dentist like that, you see a facial expression, everything right, doc? Or you're orthopedic, everything right there. You don't know what's going on when you're dealing with prostate. You're like, guys, talk to me. What's going on? Somebody, something back here.
You can't read the room.
You can't read the room, exactly. So hence the book what I'm telling you about. But
Yes.
but my point is, so they had my biopsy, 17 needle shots into the sample, the prostate. He's okay. He says, we're gonna, you got prostate cancer. That's what we do, and I said, okay, what do we do? So he said, let's he tells me everything. I said, look, you give me a couple of options here. So I said, I'm your brother. What would you tell me to do? He said, let's take it out. I said, oh, okay, let's do it. So that's what we did. I was scheduled for surgery April 1st, believe it or not, April Fool's Day. Okay. And then COVID hit in March.
Oh, yeah.
He said, you are stage 2. We're turning the cancer center into the COVID center. So I'm gonna have to postpone you.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm like, when? He goes, it's indefinite. I don't know. I'm so sorry. So once again, we go back to life being perception. Okay. So I'm like, okay, this is killing me because I have cancer in me. But the problem was when you deal with the prostate, you just when you talk about it, you look at like the lower tip of Manhattan. Make sure I equate that to my lower torso. Everything gets shorter down there. You know, the streets get shorter, one ways, everything else. But when you have a cancer down there, the cancer can jump to your hip socket, your testicles, your lymph nodes very easily.
Right.
So there's a lot of concentration of vital organs in a very small area. So I was like, I called him and said, Glenn, I'm sorry. You're still on my list. I promise you we're going to take care of this. So I reached out to Deborah. I said, Deborah, this is killing me. I said, I need to talk to somebody. As I'm walking around with cancer and the potential of it going into something else, I go, I still have no idea when I'm going to have surgery.
It's very scary.
Yeah. So she says, okay. She hooked me up with a psychiatrist who I still see today, Dr. Troutman. He's phenomenal. He's in Patchogue. Still see him today. Great doctor. He's actually going to be retiring, and he's only going to keep a few patients, and I'm going to be one of them. I have a great relationship with him. He's been very good, very good. But having, when I had the surgeries and everything else, and prostate cancer is, it's not to take away from, I think there's 71 cancers or 69 recognized cancers. Prostate cancer is one of them. And at the end of the day, thank God I got that one. Of all the cancers, I'll take that again if I had to, But prostate cancer is very personal in and of itself, where if you have lung cancer, you have lung cancer, whatever, but it doesn't really affect your relationship like prostate cancer does, or your psyche like prostate cancer does, your mental, it's really mentally draining. The two side effects are erectile dysfunction and incontinence. So that when I first got out of the hospital, I had some problems, had a lot of complications, not cancer-wise. Cancer was gone in a couple of days. Once the cancer came back after the surgery, I moved the prostate, everything was fine. But I had the surgery was supposed to take 2.5 hours. It took 5.5 hours. So I had to re-amp the anesthesia. So all my organs shut down.
Oh my gosh.
So I had bowel blockages. I had a leak where they reconnected everything, a mastocytosis, I forgot the name of it. And my doctor, he was so sweet, but I knew it wasn't his fault. I go, it just happens. He goes, no, I feel so bad. Here's my cell number. You call. I go, it's okay. I don't have cancer anymore. I'm fine. I go, I'm fine. I go, I'll figure everything out. I go, that was, we'll figure it all out. I promise. And he trained at Sloan. He was calling some of his old instructors, his old professors, at Sloan, what to do. And it'll just heal. I had a Foley. I had a JP drain here. I had 2 different bags coming out of me. I couldn't eat anything. I was getting TPN nutrition. I had a nasal, an NG tube in there because the stomach wasn't moving. Everything was.
My goodness.
It was a shit show, and then up until like the last week, I couldn't have any visitors because of COVID.
Right.
So it was hard. It was hard.
It's very hard.
Every morning I would after they made their rounds about 8:30, 9 o'clock, I would just text my family. Oh, here's the latest. Here's what's going on today with Glenn. You know what I mean? So I would update them every day.
Here's Glenn's update. So you mentioned earlier, before we started the interview, that you wrote a book.
I co-authored a book. Yes, I co-authored a book. Yeah, it's called The Casualties of Divorce. I had gotten divorced, and a friend of mine who I worked with, we got married within a week of each other. Went to the same place, Sandals, St. Lucia, and we had kids almost like the same time, which is kind of weird when you think about it, But and we worked together and everything else. And I was telling him what was going on in my marriage. It was got dissolving and everything else, and I would complain to him, it's hard. I don't see the kids, everything else. And then finally he said to me, he says, you know, I had 3 boys, he had 3 girls. He's like, Glenn, I got to be honest with you. I've been out of my house for a while. Christine wants a divorce, you know, too. I was like, oh man. So Vinny was always, he always wrote poetry, always wrote things. I said, we should write about this. So you think so? I said, yeah, sure. So we got together and we wrote down with some composite people. You know, we made up some composite instead of making it like a textbook. We wrote a book like with some composite people, but we incorporated all the issues of what men and women go through, you know, in divorces.
That's great.
You know, and it was somewhat helpful. I mean, you read your own book about 60 or 70 times, you never want to open it up again. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God, enough, right? You know, so you rewrite it, you read this punctuation, that punctuation, but it was a very good experience, you know.
But as far as the content and getting it all out, how did that affect you?
It wasn't easy. You know, there were no names. You know, there were no names. Just scenarios that everyone pretty much goes to. You know, and a lot of people. We had some good ratings on Amazon. It's still there, but a lot of people realized that there are no winners in divorce. Even for whatever the reason you want to do it. You don't like your husband, you don't like your wife, whatever the case is. No one wins.
Yeah.
No one wins.
Right.
And that's always, you know, it's always. Yeah, like I said, it's a traumatic financial incident for men, you know. There's a lot of money involved, you know, and you go through a lot of things. And I mean, I never had a problem. I knew where my money was going. You know, I knew my ex-wife wasn't buying cars and furs and all that stuff with us. I didn't have a problem with that, you know. But it's still it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a big financial thing. And you know, when you get older in your life, you don't want to be living in a basement apartment when you're 55, 60 years old, and you want to have something. But you know, you don't have that family. So when you go through things alone too, that doesn't help. When you go through things like this, issues like that doesn't help.
No, of course.
It doesn't help because I used to say, and I said in the book too, you know, having prostate cancer, you always go in the bathroom. You know, always go into the bathroom. And you know, when I first got out of there, because I had a Foley in for like 60 days, whatever it was. But when I first got out of there, I had to wear this big pad. I looked like I was on the cast of Hamilton, that play. I mean, it was just like, what is this? This is crazy, you know. But there was, you know, but when you deal with it, like I said in the book, it only hurts when you're standing still.
Yeah.
You know, so if I was busy, I didn't think about everything, and I was okay. But when I would get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and I couldn't fall asleep, I just watched the ceiling fan go round and round. That's when there's just silence. There's no cell phone. There's no TV. There's no radio. And you start thinking about things.
Yeah.
You're thinking about your life and think, should I have done things differently? How could I do things differently? And then, like I said, then it starts to hurt again. And then everything gets piled on. And then you wake up and you want to just keep moving forward. And then you do, but because of what you went through the night before, you're carrying a little more luggage, a little more baggage.
Absolutely.
And it becomes a little harder each day. And if you don't have any out, you don't have any physical, emotional out, which I didn't really have a lot of. You talk to people, like when I wrote this book, I said, oh, my book is out. Tell me, my book is out. We don't buy a copy. I was like, I can't buy a copy. My wife would think, what's going on? Why are you buying this book? It's about divorce. You know, so I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. You know, so, but it was therapeutic in a way that you got to just reach other people.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, it wasn't like this is Glenn's story. It wasn't that at all. It wasn't.
Okay.
You know, it just covered a lot of topics that people deal with men deal with.
Yeah.
You know, people who wanted a divorce, didn't want a divorce, and then we used the psychologist that I was dealing with. I had him write a piece on mostly women, you know, because he had female patients. And you know how he dealt with it. So we put all in together. We put it out there, and it was a learning experience. It definitely was a learning experience.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was something to do. You know, I
you.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed the structure of it. I enjoyed getting the information out there.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier when you have this information in your head. You're not researching it. You know.
Yeah.
You have to cite it and everything else. But it was interesting. It was good. The topic sucked a little, but you know, it was good. But I'm working on another one.
Yeah. Tell me about the one you're working on.
Well, I had prostate cancer, and like I said, it's very difficult. Prostate cancer is very, very personal. Yeah. Not only does it affect you physically, it affects your relationships, and it affects everything about your relationships.
Yeah.
And you know, you lose a lot of intimacy in your you lose a lot of everything in your
Yeah.
relationships. It changes your life completely. You have to watch what you drink if you're going out. If you're going to be in a place where, you know, there's not a lot of bathrooms or you're outdoors. It just, yeah, you do have accidents. There's a lot of things that
Mm.
it can bother you with. But um, I happen to see that, you know, there could be some humor in this, you know, because it was too serious to take seriously, you know, and men don't ever want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It took me for, it was almost impossible to ask Katie about finding a support group.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well they set one up, but no one shows up. You know, men didn't want to, they didn't want to, they don't want to talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it, or they're just uncomfortable talking about it. I was like, but we have to do something. Just, you know, let people know what's going on. You got to share this stuff. This is very, this is good information to share. Yeah, people need
Yes.
to know what's going on.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to get a support group.
Yeah.
Very difficult to get, and that's why when I was interviewed for, I think, the winter newsletter,
Mm-hmm.
we touched on that too. Because
Yeah.
I wanted to get stuff out there. But it's not wrong to go speak to somebody about this stuff. And if you're in an environment where it's people who are in the same situation, it's going to benefit you. You know,
Right.
you could share, you could do this, that, and the other thing, and you know But even people who are married, they go through this alone because they don't. I was giving blood one day, and you know, she's going to my paperwork. She goes, "Oh, you had cancer? What kind?" I said, "Oh, prostate cancer." She goes, "Oh, my husband did too." I said, "Does he talk to you about it?" She goes, "He doesn't say nothing about it." I'm like, "And that's your husband?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, he doesn't want to talk about it." I'm like, and I felt so bad, you know, because she wants to help him, but she can't, you know. But it changes everything. It changes everything in the dynamic of a relationship.
Yes.
It changes everything. Sometimes your relationships don't survive.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they don't, and I can see it. It's
when you pull intimacy off the table in some way, shape, or form. That's hard. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing to deal with.
Yeah, it is. And you know, if sometimes, you know, the partner says, well, "I don't really need to be here for this." You know, "I love you, but I don't need to be here for this." You know, I can have a normal life with another guy who's normal. You know, and it's true.
That's
You know,
right.
you can't expect everybody to turn their lives over for you because your
Yeah.
life's turned over.
Yeah.
But like I said, those are the hands you dealt. But here we are.
So you're working on this book now.
Yeah.
Listen, you're really finding.
We're gonna make it a
ways to-
comedy. I'm definitely gonna make it a comedy because
Okay.
there's definitely a lot to laugh at. There's a lot to laugh at with ED. There's a lot to laugh at with incontinence. There's just a lot to laugh at. Believe it or not, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you do some public speaking or interviews earlier. Tell me a little bit about that.
A couple of years ago, I was asked through a friend of mine who's in the Feel Good Foundation. They approached them to get a few first responders or ex-first responders to do. It was at the 20th anniversary. They were looking to see. The theme was 9/11 didn't end at 9/11, and basically it was all the people who were still getting ill, still getting sick from ailments from 9/11. That wasn't just first responders and you know, police, firemen, EMS. That was just construction workers and a lot of other people.
Right.
And as you know, the Feel Good Foundation, John Field, he was a construction worker, and he lost a piece of his foot when he was down there.
Yes.
And you know, he's been taking the charge, you know, with getting a lot of these bills passed, you know, with Phil's brother and everything else.
Yeah.
You know,
Phil Alvarez.
yeah,
Yes.
and he was getting a lot done, and you know, he rang the right phones, and he got a lot of people behind him, and thank God he does what he does, you know. And it's the interviews I did were, I thought, were excellent because it was just a matter of this. A lot of people forget,
Yeah.
and I think as you go further and you deal with the fight you deal with is the fight for funding. And every now and again, something will come up, and oh, you know, well, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that, and the problem is you have younger, I guess, more different-minded politicians, and the 9/11 never affected them.
Right.
You know, it never affected them or their relatives, and that money they think they could put it someplace else, like, you know, green energy or something to that effect. Why should we waste it on this? You know, it's not wasted on this. You know, it's going to our wellness. So people who are still getting sick, you know, you don't realize. I was diagnosed with cancer 19 years after the World Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and my only symptom was going to the bathroom twice a night, getting up to urinate twice a night. Who doesn't get up to, you know what I mean? I drink water all day long. Who doesn't do that? I thought that was normal. Right. You know, and if it wasn't by some fluke chance that I missed that I didn't go to my doctor for my annual physical, I would have never known I had cancer. And God knows how long it would have been that, that when they found it, if it would have been too late.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. You're very
Who
lucky.
knows? Yeah, I'm very lucky. And I'm grateful for that also.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of people do not want to deal with that. Like I understand now at this clinic, there's men who have been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And from what I hear too, a lot of times they by the time they get diagnosed, it's very late because they just think it was just a lump or whatever, or an ingrown hair or something to that effect, and they never dealt with it.
Right.
And it's self-care is hard because you don't know if you're doing the right thing, or you're being overreactive. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. You went to hospital. I've had a few lumps just in February. I had some blood in my urine. I bled for 19 hours, and it was another 3 weeks of all these testings and scans. And it was February. February was does Len have bladder cancer month, and luckily it all worked out. But you don't know. You don't know, especially
Right.
when you're in this community. You had it once. Why wouldn't you get affected by something else? Again. So.
Well, it's good that you're, following up and
Yeah, you have to. You
that's
just you
important.
have to. But some people, I've talked to friends. Oh, did you go? Did you go? I didn't go because I don't want to know. I just don't want to know. You got a family.
Right.
At least go for them.
That's
If you're
right.
not here, at least they can. What do you mean you don't want to know? How could you not want to know? I don't understand that logic, but I don't know. No one thinks the way you do.
I get it. Yeah.
So, but that has happened plenty of times. I've heard more people say that than I don't want to remember.
Mm.
You don't want to know. How could you not want to know?
I know.
So.
So Glenn, you talked about your prostate cancer a little bit. Talk to me about how you kind of inspire yourself on a daily basis to get through things like that. You had talked a little bit about when we featured you in the winter newsletter, positive mantras.
Yes, I when I was sick, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I normally didn't have a lot of time to read.
Mm-hmm.
I found this author, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer. One of his mantras was, "Change the way you look at things, and things will change the way they look." And when you read about, it's called a power of, I forget what it's called, but you just manifest things. If you manifest things, you can almost heal yourself of different diseases and everything else. But when you manifest a situation that you want to be in, if you want to have more money in your life, if you want to have more value things in your life, you could manifest it. You manifest the way you think about it. You all positive things to line up. It's almost like if anyone has heard of the Secret, to equate it to something, The Secret, this would be like The Secret on crack, but it's just basically it's basically the way it's described. If you want something in this world, in the universe, if you want to listen to country music, you don't turn on a rock station. You tune into a country music station. So if you want to put something out into this universe, there's something that you want in your life or a desire, even if it's emotional, mentally, or physical. Put that signal out. Put that signal out to the universe, and eventually, if you stay positive enough and you never deviate from that perception, that positive perception, it'll find its way to you. And also, doing right by others too would always help. And I guess I was never one that wasn't appreciative of life, because I've always seen life, taken away, taken shortly. In my occupation, I've always seen that, and I always wondered why would God take a baby? Why would that happen? And but I've always been one to appreciate life and appreciate the value of life. And this particular author, Wayne Dyer, he eventually did pass away, but he has books out there, plenty of so many things you can still see him. His the way he speaks and the way he taught, I found very motivating. I found it very practical too, which is also the thing I liked about it. It was very practical. Sometimes you see things and they're just not going to work. You just couldn't do it in everyday life. But I found him, and then I found different things. And when we wrote the book, when I co-authored the book, I always was famous into quotes. I love quotes. And I found all these quotes all over my house, all these on little pieces of paper here, there, and everywhere that I had gotten all over the place. So at the end of the book, I wanted to find a way where I can keep this book on your coffee table, or it didn't go into a used bin somewhere, or in the garbage. So I said, the end of the book, I want to leave some motivational quotes. And I said, I want to leave it somewhere where people will say, okay, I want to go back to this book for something. So the one quote I had to start it out with was an African proverb that said, if I get it correctly, do whatever storm, however dark the night, the sun will always rise. The light will always rise. And it's so true. No matter what you're going through, however dark it is,
Yeah.
whatever dark day you're having, the sun will always rise, no matter what. The sun is always going to rise the next day. So whatever you're dealing with, whatever's affecting you, just stick it out, because eventually the sun is going to rise again tomorrow, and you get another shot at this. And what I did was I had this stack of just loose paper all over the place that I've had for years. And I would find it in people's houses when I went to their call. Oh, can I write that down? Oh, sure. I write all these little quotes. But what I never knew is I never wrote down the authors. So it took me months to find the authors of these quotes before I could put in the book.
Right.
So basically, I just put the last 14 pages of the book were, look, everyone's going to have their dark days. If you need to come back to these quotes to help brighten up those dark days a little, here they are. And that's what I did. And I put them in the back of the book with the hope that someday someone would keep that book there and keep those quotes handy.
Yeah.
And I gave as much credit as I could to whoever I found out, and some of them were phenomenal. Some of them were great. They're just great quotes about life and how you deal with life. And when I got diagnosed with cancer, a friend of mine, Tom Wilson, God bless him, what he went through. He had tongue cancer, and they removed the piece of his forearm to give him his throat cancer. It was a mess, but he lost 85 pounds. But he called me a few days afterwards, and he says, listen, I'm telling you one thing. Just stay in the fight. He's just stay in the fight. He says, because cancer loves weak people. Mm-hmm. And if you keep punching back, cancer doesn't like that. Cancer will go someplace else where he can just win the fight. So he says the main thing to do is just stay in the fight. He says it's not always going to be easy. He says, but you're going to have to stay in the fight. And I have to be honest with you, it wasn't easy. Cancer sucks. Even I just had prostate cancer. There are a lot of people out there that are a lot worse. But no matter what type of cancer you're going to go through, it sucks, and it just completely takes you, and everything changes. Yeah. And that was the best advice that I've ever gotten from someone, Tommy, and that would be the best advice that I can give somebody. But the problem is, I always said, stay in the fight, and I tried to get back to exactly who I was. But there's going to come a time where you have to accept that this is the best you're going to be because of the damage your body went through from the disease that you had suffered from.
Right.
That's another thing that you have to deal with. But staying in the fight would be the best, the best advice I ever got. Yeah. Definitely.
Wonderful. You have an amazing outlook, and I think it's so great that you are, it sounds like, so committed to helping others who have, suffered with similar illnesses and are going through their own journeys. So I think people need you, you need people like you around,
Well, people, it's very scary, and there's no doubt about it. It's scary, but I just want people to realize that with medicine these days, it's so, I had prostate cancer. I had a radical prostatectomy. This machine, it's got the arms, and this doctor's in this little thing, and now I'm finding out that in the last 2 years they have something called it's like a prostate ablation for prostate cancer now, where they just go in through the uterus. I don't even know the word, the urethra, and they blast out the cancer without surgery.
Oh.
High pressure water is what they're doing to eliminate the cancer cells in the prostate. Now it leads to you have some bleeding, you have whatever you have, but they have these, you have, the recovery is much different.
Mhm.
There's no surgery. You don't really go through all the things that you'd normally go through.
Right.
They're doing it at one hospital over in Mather now. I have a friend of mine who's a nurse in the ER there, in the OR, and she's I didn't want to tell you because I know what you went through.
Right.
I know what you're still going through. And she says, and now they're doing it with high pressure water. They're getting rid of cancer. I'm like, really? She says, yeah, 3-4 weeks you're gonna be bleeding and you're gonna be uncomfortable and all this other stuff. But they're eliminating that cancer with high pressure water.
It's amazing.
I was like, wow. So my point is that what 69, 71 cancer, I forget how many cancers there are now that the World Trade Center thing. If you are diagnosed with one, there's going to be something out there that you can. My point is you can have life. Not all these cancers are fatal.
Right.
And you can find treatment, and you can find treatment successfully. And one thing I did notice through here that I never expected to go through was that there's a large portion of whatever department you're going through. Like I went through urology.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large portion of it that deals with the quality of life after the cancer that you had.
Mm-hmm.
And that I found that surprising, but I also found that very enlightening and very, very thankful that I did that.
That's great.
And I'm sure they have it in other cancers, with other cancers, but I never realized that. And I'm sure, I mean, I was just one cancer, but I'm sure other people don't realize that too. That I'm sure when they look at a cancer, they look at it as a death sentence or something similar to that. And I want people to realize that it's not. You know, there are people always working all day, all over the world on cancers or whatever. And the technology, since the technology is there, and if the technology is getting better, you're going to get it. You're going to get it in that care here.
Right.
And so if you get a cancer at 35 or 65, none of those cancers are death sentences. I don't believe. You know, and if you, like I said, you go into it with the right mental attitude, you stay in the fight, and then you have the right people to help you with to do the technical stuff of it, you know, the medical stuff of it.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay. It's not easy, but it's a tremendous challenge to your everyday life and to your psyche and to your mentally and to emotionally and to your family. It's not easy,
Right.
but you can come out of the other end of this. You can, and I came out of the other end of this just, I guess, wiser. And I want to make people realize that every cancer is not a death sentence.
Yeah.
And you can actually have you could have a life after cancer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not the life you always wanted, but you know, once again, we go back to perception. Whenever I complain about, oh, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that, I wish I could do this again, I'd always get a friend of mine to say, but you beat cancer, but you're alive.
Right.
All right, shut up, I don't need to hear that right now. You know what I mean? So there's always a perception that it could be worse. And if you go along with that perception, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it could have been worse. So God knows I know that. I know that for all, you know, I could have had anything else and it could have gone a lot longer and it could have gone worse. So I am blessed, although I'm not the person that I want to be. I'm still blessed. I'm still humble, and I'm still going to do everything I can to, you know, makes people realize that you can be okay here.
Yeah. So you're part of our nutrition program.
Yes.
So what led you to seek nutrition counseling?
Well, first of it was the way it was advertised a lot, and I noticed that. And then at the same time, I was going to doctors and oh, your A1C is 7.3, you're pre-diabetic, and these are words I only heard from people when I was working. I get an ambulance, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do that. I said, wait a minute, you know, it's so funny because when you have a cancer or you have something that happens in your life, I should say, you use that as your new standard for things. Like my girlfriend, she likes to run. So she'll do her 5Ks, whatever. So she said, I'm going to run a 5K. You want to do something? I said, I'll participate. I said, I'll walk, I'll run telephone pole. That's 90 feet. That's 30 yards. I said, okay, I'll do it. I said, you go do your 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish in under an hour. but I'm going to finish. I'm going to run and walk, you know.
Mhm.
So, but my point is when I'm out there and I'm doing something like that, physical like that,
Mhm.
and I'm sweating and I'm dying, I'm thirsty. I'm like, oh my God, I got to finish this thing. The the surviving cancer is my my motivation. I said, you know what? If I could survive cancer, I could run 3.1 miles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
whatever, you know, when we go through things in life,
Mhm.
if you use them as a source of as your new standard for motivation,
Yeah.
you can't lose.
That's right.
You know, you can't, like I'll tell people, oh, you know, I can't do this, and then I say to myself, wait a minute, I can do that. I beat cancer, so why can't I do this?
Right.
That's nothing compared to being. So
Right.
you know, when you go through things in life, remember that, you know, whatever it is in life, if it
Mhm.
was the hardest thing you ever walked through, you know, a friend of mine, I've always seen this too. If you ever have to, if your journey brings you to hell, walk through it like you own the place. You know what I mean? And it's so true. You know, I was like, do it. You know, do it that way. You know,
Right. Right.
and so whatever, you know, so whatever your journey is, just, you know, use that as your, you know, for obviously it's going to be your darkest day, but when you have to challenge something and you're faced with another impossible situation that you think, say, wait a minute, I beat cancer, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
You know, and it just makes it makes perception. And what I like to say is, like, after cancer,
Mhm.
or after anything you have to deal with in the World Trade Health Program, let this serve as your new standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you do that, you're unbeatable.
Yeah.
You're unbeatable. And nutrition was part of it for me. You know, nutrition was part of it for me. I saw the advertisements, and I saw everything. And then they said to me, "Oh, my doc said, oh, you should go for one of those bands, you know, for the bands." I'm like, he said, "Well, yeah, but then you have to lose 30 pounds to have the band." And I'm like, "Why would I lose 30 pounds to have the surgery? Why don't I just lose 40 pounds and, you know, not have the surgery? You know, just like to make it as a lifestyle
Mhm.
change." And dealing with Katie and I forgot, I forget her name now, not Allison,
Amanda.
Amanda. Dealing with Katie and Amanda. It's not that you're putting you on a diet. The way they do it is such a different approach, where it almost becomes like a lifestyle or a way of eating. And like I'm sitting here telling people, oh no, you can have those carbs. Make sure you have a protein with those carbs. Like, who are you and what'd you do with Glenn? I'm like, okay, hold on a second. I said, you can have carbs. I know, you know, but if you have a protein with those carbs, it'll cut the carb. You'll have net carbs. So what does that mean? I go, because it'll take a little of the carb away, the impact away. Oh, really? Where'd you learn that? I said, I learned that in nutrition. You know, so then my A1C was high. I said, oh, I got to get that. I got to get this down. My A1C. I want to get diabetes. I said, I didn't retire from the police department or beat cancer to have diabetes or to die from something else like that, or have a leg removed or something, you know, from that stuff. I said, so the nutrition program here was a lifesaver, because I didn't know, and I'll be the first to admit it. I'll fall on a sword for most men too. I don't know how to eat, and a lot of people don't know how to eat. You know, and just with a few different tweaks that I learned from here, I'm much better. Oh, believe me, I'll give myself. I'll have my. I don't even call them cheat days. I mean, I know what I'm not supposed to eat a lot of. I know what I'm supposed to eat a lot of.
Mhm.
But if I do it on a day where I was like, oh, I had this, that, and the other thing, I'll tell Katie, like, confess to Katie, and she'll be like, so what? Did you enjoy it? I go, yeah, I really enjoyed it. She goes, that's okay. You're not gonna eat it tomorrow, are you? No, I'm not gonna eat it tomorrow. Did you love it yesterday? I loved it yesterday. Good for you. You know what I mean? So it's a much different approach,
Right.
the way they handle nutrition. And I got to be honest, it's very successful.
That's
It's
great.
very successful because I lost a ton of weight. My A1C went from 7.3 down to 5.2.
Wow.
Went off metformin. Went off some diabetic medication. I owe it all to them. You know, it's just a matter of,
Amazing.
and they explain it. They explain. You know, it's not like I'm going someplace where they're giving me the. Well, they had an intern there one day, and I was talking to him about it, and I got her on the phone afterwards. I go, he's a nice guy, but I'm not a med student, and he's talking to me like I am. He's got to talk in regular layman's terms.
Yes.
So, okay, thanks. Let me know. You know, tell him that. I said, he's smart. He's smarter than me. He's smarter than the average bear. But I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I
Mhm.
said, I'm not, you know, I don't have his skill set.
Right.
And most of the people that you walk in here, I'm not going to have his skill set.
Yes.
You know, I said, he's very good at what he does. I'm sure he's got the education to prove it, but he's got to talk to us differently if we're going to get something from
Right.
this, you know?
Right.
So I really love the way it's done. you know, it's broken down. It's very simple. It's broken down like we need it. We're cops, you know. We need it. We're men, I should say. We need it that simple. We do. And it's not that hard. It's not that hard. You just make a simple things. Just, you know, try not to eat. You know, try not to eat after 8 o'clock at night. But the simple stuff. And the food, she has the nice pictures of everything you need. If you can go shopping, you bring a sheet. There it is. What's it called? Yeah, reading it. There's a picture of it. Perfect. She must go through color ink. I hope they never cut her short on color ink, because I'll buy it for her, because she is great. I've gone shopping with more of her literature than anybody I know. It's
Amazing.
looking there, you know, the chickpea pasta. I go, where am I going to find this? It's not just words; it's pictures. I'm like, there it is. Look,
Amazing.
so it's good, but it's kept me grounded. You know, I always go back. My weight's always been a problem my whole life, but it has kept me grounded, and I found it very comfortable. I do.
I'm so glad that it has worked. It's been so successful for you. That is.
And they
great to
care.
hear.
Oh my God, they care so much.
Yes.
When I was in the hospital, you know, they knew what I was going through for 25 days.
Yes.
You know, you all right? I go, yeah, I'm good. I saw this. I'm like, no, it's okay. I said, when we get out, we're going to do another plan. She said, oh, we will, I promise you. You know, so, no, they're genuine. They're very genuine.
Excellent.
Very genuine there. Yes.
Fun. Has this interview captured everything you wanted it to capture?
I think so. I think in closing, I would just tell people, like I said, if you do get sick, don't, of course, you know, don't worry. You know, there are people here who are going to take care of you, and believe me, they'll take care of you. I mean, I had a simple cancer, one of the simplest, and I had complications, and I still have complications. I have neuropathy in my my left hip. The stuff got pins and needles in here. They put an A line in it, nicked something. Had an ulnar nerve release, you know, still pins and needles in one hand. They didn't quite fix it. But you may not have the same life you had post-cancer, but you're still gonna have a life.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. Because I've dealt with quite a few people who are not gonna play with their grandchildren.
Yeah.
You know, but if you get sick, change your attitude right away. Just make it, don't stay in the fight. Just make it where you're unbeatable. Yeah. You know, and just don't feel sorry for yourself, because no one you deal with is gonna tolerate that shit. None of the nurses, none of the doctors, they're not there to coddle you and pet your head and say, I'm sorry. They're there to get you better. And they're there to get you on a better track. And they're there to give you a life and a quality of life after they conquer your cancer. And that's one thing I did learn from this place. There's no room for, just as if I could just say one other thing. It's funny, when I went back to, when I follow up with my urologist, I see her, there's a PA there named Stephanie Mason, and she's great. Stephanie's great. And for some reason, I kind of fell through the cracks when I got my biopsy. The results didn't come in, so I called up one of the nurse managers, Maureen, I think her name was Marlene. Marlene, it's Glenn Duquini. I said, I didn't get my results yet. It's not on the portal. I know what's going on. She goes, oh my God, Glenn, I'm so sorry. I've been out and everything else. Something happened. She goes, can you come in today? I said, well, I'm working right now. I said, I can come in, but I'm in uniform. She goes, it'll only take a few minutes. I'll tell me coming in. So I pull up in a police car, whatever. I go into the cancer center, and I see Marlene. She puts me in a room. She goes, okay, somebody there in a minute. So Stephanie walks in, and Dr. Salviera, and they tell me, you know, I have cancer, the official word, I have cancer. So I'm at the point in my book where I'm writing it. So I see Stephanie at one of the office visits recently, and I said, how do you tell people? Because I know how I give like death notifications. When I have to do that, I tell people, I kind of make them guess it. You know what I mean? I don't have to like come out and say it. You know, I kind of make them guess, and I say, yes, you're right. You know what I mean? But yes, he died. He died. You know, but I try to make them guess it, so they're not so traumatized by my words. So I said, how do you tell people that they have cancer? You know, she says, well, you were a little different. I go, wait a minute. She says, you just have to read the room. You know, you have to read the room and everything else. And some people, they'll fall to the floor, they'll start screaming, you know, but you were a little different. I go, why was I different? She says, well, I never told somebody they had cancer who had a gun on them. I go, oh my God, Steph, what do you mean? She goes, yeah, I didn't know what you were going to do. I didn't know if you're going to shoot me. You know, she goes, I'm like, I would never do. She goes, I've told a lot of people they have cancer, but never somebody who has a gun on them. You could never predict someone's reaction to that. You know what I mean? So I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I would have never done that. She goes, no, it was something that struck my mind. You know, that I was like, I would never have thought of that. You know what I mean? So you never know what someone else is thinking. You know what I mean?
Right.
So my point is, if you're going to sit there, if someone's going to tell you, you know, and they're going to talk to you, you have cancer, you never know how they're going to react.
Right.
And I wanted to tell that person who they're not know how to react, listen, embrace it. Go home, make a plan, and say, you're getting into a ring now. You're going to be getting into a ring now, and you're going to be fighting.
Yeah.
And you need to fight like a fucking dog. Because if you don't, you're going to lose.
Right.
And every day you got to get up. And on your worst days, you got to get up. And if you lose hair through chemotherapy, still got to get up.
Mm-hmm.
If you're throwing up all night after chemo, you still have to get up. And every day you keep punching.
Yeah.
You stay in the fight. Eventually, cancer will say, this isn't worth it. I'm going to go to somebody else. And then you'll start to get better. But you have to stay in the fight, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's what I would want to tell people, because you have all the support you need here,
Mm-hmm.
there, and everywhere. No one's going to let you down here. No one's going to let you down. And when your family, you know, a smile, people will be attracted to someone who's more positive than more negative.
Truth.
And if you do that, you'll have everything you need. And then psychologically, the universe is going to take care of it. It's going to take care of you. It'll be sometimes it may be a little longer than you plan, like mine, but you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Just stay positive and just stay in a fight, and no matter what it is, you'll come out on the other side of it.
Amazing.
You may not be the same person completely 100%, but
Mm-hmm.
you'll come out on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sitting here today. So
Amazing. Glenn, since these stories that we're documenting here will be archived in the Library of Congress, is there anything you might want someone 50, 100 years from now to know about the disaster or the responders?
well, you know, all of us now, what, 20, 24 years out of it? You know, how many years out of it are we
23.
now? 23 years out of it. There's a lot of people who are sick. I don't know the number, but considering how many people went there and how many people are sick, I didn't even know what the percentage is, but it has to be high. You would know
Many
that.
more now are sick.
Yeah, you would
Yes.
know how the percentage on that. But it would probably be safe to say that every one of those people, us who were sick, would probably do the same thing all over again if we had to. And that's because that's what we did. That's what that's what we do. And to watch something like that unfold again, and to know how so many people relied on, you know, police, fire, and EMS, and even the construction workers to try to help them, and just you know, at some point it wasn't even, like I said, you talk about perception. At some point it wasn't even a matter of bringing people out alive anymore. You know, it was trying to bring closure to someone. You know, if I found a finger with a ring on it, and that's all that's going to be for a family to bury, then it's some sense of closure.
Yeah.
You know, so I would have to say that everyone down there, and I did their job during that time with the utmost of dignity, the utmost of respect. And, you know, the fact that we got sick from it, you know, it's horrible that we got sick. And we got sick because of a lot of other things. You know, I remember, you know, not to get political, but I remember going there and they said, oh, the air quality's fine. Yeah. You know, Krista Tudwin, and the air quality's fine. Okay. And then she came by with a truck loaded with respirators. And they would give you one canister to breathe. So instead of changing the mask every hour, like the paper mask every hour, because that was black, you would look at somebody, oh, listen, your Camille, your filter is black. Go change another one. So you would go back to the truck, FEMA truck. You have any more filters for the cartridges? Oh, no, we don't have any more. Okay, you know what? Then here, take the whole mask and give me the box back of masks so I can take the respirator back. So give me the box back so at least I could change the mask every hour,
Right.
and not breathe the crap in with this. You know, it was just, I would like to think that if something had this happen again, God forbid, that there would be more lessons learned from the lack of preparation from the last time.
Yes.
And I would hope that there would be a lot more learned from it, and to protect first responders in a much better way. That's what I would hope for. Will that happen? I don't know, you know, but that would be my hope.
I hope so
to come in, for them to come to the scene a lot more prepared by the lessons learned.
Yes.
And that's what I would hope for.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn. This was a really wonderful interview. You gave us some great
Thanks.
perspective.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I enjoyed doing it.
I'm so glad.
Enjoyed doing it.
Okay, this concludes our interview with Glenn. Thank you so much for your willingness to come in and participate in this very special project.
Great. Thank you.